Chapter 8. Miss Tyler, I presume? The doctor was in his element. Quizzing the cat nurses head-on about their miracle methods hadn't been the best strategy, so he'd opted to go straight for the source, the patients and remedies themselves. Out came his trusty spectacles and off he went, nipping from one sickbed to the next, diagnosing the occupants at a glance, examining their brightly coloured medicine drips, and even doing sneaky scans with a sonic screwdriver when he thought he could get away with it. Every now and again, the hospital intercom would chime in softly across the floor. Ambient temperatures stand at 14 degrees Cohetsic. Repeat, 14 degrees Cohetsic. This temperature was designed to promote healing and well-being. It was extraordinary, really extraordinary. There were more patients and illnesses than he could count, but no charts, no way to keep track of any treatments already administered. And yet apart from the Face of Boe, not a single person here wasn't on their way to full recovery. The doctor was midway through studying an IV drip which was coloured a pale lavender when he was suddenly interrupted by an almighty shriek from the other end of the ward.
Oh my God, how fat is that?
He looked up and smiled in relief when he saw Rose. She'd reached Ward 26 at last and was presently backing away from the Duke of Manhattan's sickbed with the most revolted expression on her face. Frau Clovis was outraged.
How dare you!
She roared, jumping up out of her seat.
Defamation of His Grace the Duke of Manhattan will result in the most punitive legal action.
I mean, fat in a good way, Rose gabbled as she desperately tried to backtrack. You could survive an ice age. Rose! She turned. Her eyes found his across the room and she fixed him with a dazzling smile. One that thankfully did a lot to dispel any misgivings the doctor might have had about her tardiness as he came charging over to the rescue. There you are, he grumbled when he reached her. Took you long enough, what kept you? Sorry, she's with me. Thank you. Rose, less of the lip.
It's all right, it's quite all right, my dear,
the Duke chuckled, winking at Rose.
A pretty girl can say anything she likes. Frau Clovis, winch me up further.
The Duke's personal assistant looked just about ready to explode, but instead she said nothing, snatching the remote off his bedside and obliging him with a click. As the Duke edged upright, he was rather surprised to see Rose giving him a foxy wink of her own. Nice winch, she breathed. I found who we were looking for, by the way, did I mention? Said the doctor, who was far too busy studying the readings of a medical scanner nearby. He's just off getting some shut-eye. We'll catch up with him later. You remember our friend the Duke? Petrified regression, freezes you into rock, should be a death sentence. Well, he's fine now, look, just made a complete recovery. Miraculous. Stone cells all gone, all because of that intravenous solution they've given him. It's some kind of anti-calciform superderivative, it's brilliant. Rose blinked rather rapidly, obviously still quite a bit overwhelmed by the sheer size and wealth of the enormous fellow lounged out in front of them. That's wonderful, she said at last. The doctor looked up from the scanner. No, he corrected, that's impossible. The butler from before stepped up beside them and held out his drinks tray again. Champagne, sir. Madam. The doctor shook his head and waved the man away impatiently, then frowned a bit when Rose reached for it instead. Oh, moisturize me, she purred, taking a sip from the glass, a good, long sip, and getting a very sharp glare from Frau Clovis for her trouble. But the doctor almost laughed. Their first trip. This new planet had definitely put Rose in a nostalgic sort of mood. Here she was, being silly again, quoting the favourite catchphrase of a certain vitriolic skin trampoline the two of them had met on Platform 1. What a time they'd had together. It still seemed like yesterday to him. Funny, he said with a small smile, nodding towards the end of the ward. I was just thinking about her. What with the Face of Boe? Rose choked noisily on her next gulp of champagne and nearly slopped half of it down her front. Oh, her, she managed to splutter in a slightly higher, harsher voice than usual. She was a monster! Which earned her yet another reprimanding glance from Clovis, this time echoed by the doctor. Oh, you'll have to excuse my friend, he grinned good-naturedly, quite keen to move them on before Rose caused any more trouble. She's from Barcelona. A misunderstood monster, Rose went on. Anyway, thanks, Your Grace. I think we've taken up enough of your time. Good luck with it, and don't go eating gravel again. A monster you murdered. Come on, you. The doctor took the champagne out of Rose's hand and set it back on the butler's tray. Come and look at this patient. And studiously averting his eyes from her neckline, which seemed to plunge a little too far, the doctor led Rose away by the arm over to the patient opposite. A woman suspended in a white chamber, plugged into wires and IV drips hanging from the ceiling. Her skin was redder than the colour of wine, but otherwise she looked peaceful. All around, veiled sisters were painting her with long medical brushes. Marconi's disease, the doctor murmured to Rose, swiping off his glasses and keeping his voice down so they wouldn't be overheard. Should take years to recover. 2 days. I've never seen anything like it. They've invented a cell-washing cascade. It's amazing. Rose barely even had time to look at the patient before the doctor was whisking her off on a whirlwind tour around Ward 26, eager to fill her in on everything she'd missed. Now this was more like it. The Doctor and Rose, back together and on the move again, investigating medical mysteries in this curious corner of the universe. The Duke of Manhattan, however, wasn't ready to let them off so easily.
Oh, my dear,
He called after Rose as she made to follow the doctor up the ward.
you simply must give me a kiss before you go. I need your good luck to see me through.
The doctor pulled a face. Humans. Try as he might, he just couldn't get away from people chatting up Rose Tyler, could he? Even this far in the future. Not bothering to hear what she might say back, he drew back the curtain in front of another bed. Look at this one. Hawtrey syndrome. Terminal. Not here though. They never lose a patient. He turned to her with a grin. Well then, Nurse Tyler, any prognosis so far? Rose? She was no longer by his side. It took the doctor a moment to realise he'd been talking to thin air. Had she gone wandering off again already? He was about to double back when Rose suddenly stuck her head through the curtain on the other side, smirking to herself like she'd just gotten away with something naughty. Yes, alright. The doctor sighed. Oh, are you even trying to listen to me? Come on, keep up. Honestly, it's like I'm talking to myself sometimes. And he yanked Rose back over to join him, feeling her stiffen slightly when he slipped a hand around her waist. This IV therapy stuff's all wrong, he said conspiratorially, drawing her in close. Do you see? Thousands and thousands of adaptive nanochemical compounds, all in perfect equilibrium with each other. Their medical science is way advanced. Rose folded her arms across her chest, which the doctor was trying extra hard not to notice, and leaned in to study the patient in front of them. Clearly intrigued, but not saying much either. She was being oddly quiet and distant with him today. Normally, she was always the one brimming with questions. When she did finally open her mouth to reply, the doctor had already dragged her off in an exciting new direction. There was still so much more to show her. The pox plaguing the Carlos silk trader, the wasting sickness of the Lady Ganov. And this one. They stopped next to a bald, colourless man whose chalky complexion was whiter than the sheets covering his bed. Pallidome pancrosis. Kills you in 10 minutes, and he's fine. The doctor gave the patient a cheery wave, then glanced furtively about the ward, mindful of unfriendly ears that might be listening. I need to find a terminal. I've got to see how they do this. He reached out for Rose's hand again, and jolted when she simply breezed right past him without a word, ankle boots rapping smartly across the floor. The doctor blinked, then fell into step behind, letting her take the lead and trying to ignore the odd change in her stride as she waltzed on ahead of him. Funny. He couldn't remember Rose ever swinging her hips like that before. He kept up the running commentary regardless, hoping it would impress her as they headed for the exit together.
"'Cause think about it, you can practically smell the money in this place. If they've got the best medicine in the world, then why is it such a secret?"
Rose gave a lofty shrug. "I can't Adam and Eve it," she drawled, in that same posh, nasally voice she'd used on the phone. The doctor looked sideways at her.
"You sure you're all right?"
"Fine," she said quickly, speeding up her walk. "Why do you ask?" He scratched his cheek.
Not sure, just something different about you, that's all. No need to get shirty. Speaking of which, what happened to your jacket?"
The question appeared to stop Rose dead in her tracks.
Oh, you noticed,"
she said, all coy and fidgety as she turned back to face him, tugging on the end of her blouse.
"Well, it's a bit hot in here, innit?"
"It's 14 degrees Cohetic."
"Whew, boiling."
She fanned herself dramatically, smiling up at him.
Guess it got a bit ruined by, the old disinfectant."
Which seemed to be explanation enough, but the doctor blinked at her curiously. He wasn't sure what to make of this frisky new change that had come over Rose today, but it didn't really suit her. All that strutting about, the stilted Cockney accent, which, come to think of it, sounded a lot more Sloane Square than Powell Estate. Even that smile, oddly crooked on her lips, was just a little too broad, too bright. She'd done something to her hair and even found the time to put on makeup, he noticed. Clever swipes of mascara, vivid scarlet lipstick. But it was something in her eyes, a glint, a flicker of mischief, which gave the doctor the most pause. Like Rose was mocking him.
"So, what's with the voice?"
he stammered, the worry now written across his face. Rose giggled, all innocence again. "Oh, I dunno, just larking about, new earth." Her eyes flicked cheekily downwards.
"New me."
The doctor gulped nervously, not even fully knowing why he was nervous. Rose was right. This was new. Teasing was second nature to them both, but she was positively coquetting now. Hands on her hips, shoulders back, looking him up and down as if seeing him for the first time, considering him as he'd considered her, all pink and yellow and cleavage. The two of them had played this sort of game before. Oh, so many times, but never quite like this. Was it something he'd done? Something about this new face? He knew Rose had found the change difficult at first. Had he made her feel like she needed to change things up as well? This whole notion of being new was decidedly a touchy one, so the doctor forced his gaze back up again instead of pushing for a better answer. Okay then, if Rose wanted to be different too, fine. He wasn't going to stop her. All the same though, she was acting rather odd. So sly and sultry, a simper in her smile and that gleam in her eye. The doctor had the tiniest inkling she knew exactly what she was doing.
"Quick, say something. Anything." "Purple? You sure about that colour?"
No, something funny. That's it, take the tension out.
Well,
he managed at last, making a valiant effort to keep his attention on Rose's face and fairly certain he was failing.
I can talk. New doctor.
He threw in a dazzling grin to boot, but it faltered when she didn't laugh. If anything, that shaky attempt to rehash his own joke from before had only succeeded in making her eyes glaze over. Rose purred softly. Aren't you just? And suddenly, very, very suddenly, she swooped in on tiptoe, grabbed the doctor's face with both hands, yanked him down towards her and smashed her lips against his with blunt, desperate enthusiasm. She was kissing him, the doctor realized. Far, far too late. Kissing him? Rose, his brilliant, brave, best friend Rose Tyler. Really? properly kissing him. Blimey. It was a hell of a lot clumsier and more forceful than he would ever imagined Rose to be. Not just a kiss, but a long, hard, full-on snog. Her hands, neither gentle nor affectionate, tangled themselves in the doctor's hair and held him tight, raking her nails along his scalp. Her lips, meanwhile, were working at the most frenzied pace, biting down fiercely onto his own as if she were trying to devour all of him in one go. The doctor couldn't breathe. Rose now appeared to be doing her very best to pry his mouth open with her tongue so she could shove it past his teeth. He could feel her body pressing itself closer, hips arching into his as she voraciously changed her angle of attack. Up, down, sideways, tilt this way, tilt the other. The unexpected physical stimulus was causing sensory overload. He hadn't been ready for this, hadn't even known it was coming. His whole head was scrambled, his brain a hopeless jumble of yes and no, of wait and stop and what? Just what? With both hands still in his pockets, he found he was actually bending down to let Rose have more of him, which she did, and for one terrifying second he forgot everything about the cat nuns, the patients, the ward, the hospital, focusing on her, only on her, as she swayed and rocked against him. And then... Mwah! Rose broke the clinch just as suddenly as she'd started it, pulling away from him with a loud, wet pop. The doctor was back in the real world, blinking, staggered, stunned, barely able to breathe, his mind ruffled as much as his hair. Rose, meanwhile, took a gasping step back, in obvious need of some air and a moment to compose herself. She looked to be just as dazed as he was, and possibly even a little guilty, hair mussed, lipstick smudged, pupils dilating rapidly as she straightened her shirt, a nice patchwork top that did alarming things to her. The doctor quickly brought his eyes up to Rose's face again. Yeah, purple. Great colour for her. He fought for words, a sound, anything. But it was Rose who spoke first. She wiped her mouth on the back of a shaky wrist like she'd just eaten some fried chicken, combed her hair back with one hand, fanned her burning face with the other. Then, with all the wherewithal one could conceivably muster under the circumstances, she pointed a feeble finger over her shoulder and managed to stutter out, "Terminals this way." And with another irresponsible swish of her hips, she was turning on her heel and sauntering off down the hall again, still trying to catch her breath. The doctor made a strangled sort of noise as he was left standing there like a lemon, watching Rose glide away with all the poise and propriety of a woman twice her age. When she was almost out of sight, he caught a glimpse of himself in a convenient mirror and finally felt his voice return to him. There was, really, only one thing to say.
Yup,
the doctor squeaked, slicking back his wrecked hair before following after her.
still got it.
Novice Hame had seated herself against the bay window of Ward 26, preparing a lotion for the Face of Boe. Outside, the busy skyline of New York glittered distantly in the sun, like it was waiting for her. She tried not to let her mind wander. Being assigned as the Face's caregiver imbued her with a sense of responsibility she hadn't felt since her very first week wearing the veil. But Hame wasn't sure Matron Casp approved of the curiously close bond she'd formed with her patient. To become a sister of plenitude is to consign oneself to a lifetime of duty, she'd reminded her once, in that stern voice she always used. You are no longer merely catkind. You are now a healer, and therefore you must fully commit to our vow of sanctified detachment. Remember, the task before us is a long and arduous one. There can be no place for sentiment in the good work that we do. Still, Hame was young, barely out of her kitten years. She still had her looks, her fur and idealism. In time, the matron assured her, she would learn. Her sleeping patient, meanwhile, was so old it felt like he had lived forever. Until now, no one had really known if the Face of Boe could actually die. Perhaps not even the face himself. His longevity was a mystery. It was not due to the gases in his tank, nor the coils of his DNA. It was as if he lived on by will alone. Or by mistake. The hospital's medical records said he had borne children. He'd been particularly fertile during the fourth great and bountiful human empire, carrying 3 sons and 3 daughters. But all 6 Boemina lived a natural lifespan of 40 years and no more. The Face of Boe watched his children die and had stayed watching while the rest of the world forgot they even existed. Except for one. Hame couldn't help but think back to her conversation earlier with that visitor from nowhere who had called himself Doctor, who had come and listened, properly listened, to her stories, with a kindness in his eyes that made her feel like she could trust him completely. Hame had even told him about her parents and wondered if one day she would ever find it in her heart to forgive them. And yet, there was something else too, wasn't there? She'd seen how he'd reacted when she told him of the Face of Boe's fabled secret. That steeliness in his gaze, almost like the words held some hidden significance that was known only to him, and him alone. It was in this quiet moment of contemplation that Hame thought she heard an ancient sigh. The young sister-in-training turned back to her patient and gasped. The Face of Boe had opened his eyes. Novice Hame crouched down urgently beside his tank. "Your friend's arrived," she whispered. "The doctor. Do you want me to find him?" The Face of Boe regarded her for a moment, floating quietly in his smoke. Then, slowly, his great head nodded and sighed again, and Hame glided swiftly away.